Welcome to HIT Podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we are dropping into your feed with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, well-curated conversations going on in this space. We try to keep to that bite-sized and digestible, and sometimes these talks are so awesome and fantastic that they go a little bit long. So this is the second half, part two of my conversation with Nick Allen. If you missed last week, go back for the first half of my conversation with Nick. This is part two. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And without any further ado, we are going to get right into pick up where we left off, my conversation with Nick Allen. Yeah, so I think that I completely agree, obviously. And I think some of the things that really draw me into wanting to heat the cameras up to have this conversation with you is some of the stuff you touch on where it's like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Employer, here's some best practices ideas that I hope you're noodling. I hope you're considering. I hope you're holding your broker consultant's feet to the fire about, because these things need to be considered, right? And there's so many rabbit holes. I'll let you kind of steer and drive down any that jump out at you. One recent post, though, I'll give you is kind of a thought on kind of where I'm going on this, and then go really wherever it draws to you. But setting the specific deductible on your stop loss insurance, right? Your ISL. So when we're talking about stop loss, comes in two flavors. You got your individual and your aggregate. And the individual stop loss is saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Employer, when you're self-funded, you're going to pay all of your claims, except for the part where if any one given claimant hits a certain amount, then the stop loss is going to perform. So good news, you're sort of protected from that standpoint. Arriving at that dollar figure, if the dollar figure is too low, right, there's an overpayment actually in either direction, right? Because if it's too high, now you're taking on kind of undue risk. If it's too low, you're paying for coverage that you really don't need. And so when you arrive at this, is it, and I saw you framing it this way, is it just best practices, which maybe ignores your own actual claims? Is it whatever we did last year? Is it what the TPA recommended? Because if it is what the TPA recommended, does the TPA want us to win as badly as we want us to win? Are our incentives aligned? So these sorts of, I think, really thoughtful advocating that you do for the imperative role that a good, which I know a great independent actuary brings to the table. These are the spots where I just want to call attention for folks and say, this is why, and this is why, and this is why. So super long-winded question, kind of tee you up, but just to let you rap about some of the places where you see good sound actuarial science would make a difference. And if you're a plan sponsor out there listening, here's a couple of reasons why you should be listening.
Oh, well, the stop loss insurance one is such a good one. It's a great example, because that's another one of those areas where I think people have been vibing versus using math to decide how to pick, a deductible. And it's 100% something that can be done with math if you have the right tools, if you have the right actuary, etc. What I'll share just overall about this topic is that there's, the technology in the industry is not so far where, it's all going to be just like done with an AI assistant, not for some time, not for quite some time, actually. But it is coming far enough where a lot of the decisions that people have been making based on their own experience in the industry or with TPA help can be done with calculators, with tools in a way that's automated, but still puts the power in their hands to make a judgment call. So said another way, there's not a lot of objective financial decisions in the insurance space right now that can or even should be made without some kind of analytical support. And where, even 5 years ago, a lot of that analytical support was pretty manual. Nowadays, it's a lot of it has become pretty automatable with the right amount of user interaction. So, and I could riff all day about what those different things are. You brought up a great one with stop loss deductibles. There's another one about a decision about whether or not ag insurance is needed. Another about, all kinds of different things. plan design, contribution analysis, and so on. But what I'd say to people is you don't need to any longer, spend a whole lot of time thinking about how long that's going to take you. Mostly now, what I'd say is the focus should be find the right tools that are going to help you perform, that computation, so that as the advisor, don't have to do them in any way manually, nor do you have to rely on somebody else on your team to do them manually. There's enough good tools that you can trust that are going to help you advance conversations without having to do a bunch of stuff inside of an Excel spreadsheet.
You touched on several things there, and one of them that jumps out at me that I think people will be shocked to find out about when you talk about plan design. If you're in benefits as a plan sponsor, as HR, and your only real experience is in the fully insured space, what you know about benefits is that raising or lowering deductibles, copays has a huge meaningful impact on your ultimate plan spend. You've got this sort of dollar figure you're trying to hit. So when you change copays and deductibles, it moves what your premium is. When we're quoting self-funded stuff and we're talking to some of the TPAs out there, when you start talking about plan design, they're kind of like, well, whatever. Like almost like it's such a secondary thought, because in their mind, they're trying to talk to you about total cost. And the idea is, well, this is when we look at the plan, the total cost of what's going to be incurred. So, you chop it up a little. And I go, no. Because here's the thing about claims. Claims is a function of how much and how many, right? How many MRIs are going to occur and how much does the MRI cost? So if you change the cost of an MRI from $0 to $2,000, okay? If I had a $0 MRI and I rolled my ankle on the Sunday, I'm being the doctor on the Monday. If I have a $2,000 deductible and I roll my ankle on the Sunday, I might take a little bit of Advil and ice for a few days, right? To see whether or not I'm going to incur that claim at all. So when you talk about plan design changes, you have an impact, not only that the plan, the plan saves $2,000 on that MRI because now the employee is going to take on that deductible. You're also going to suppress the overall number of MRIs that occur. And if you don't have good actuarial math and good actuaries in this equation, and again, I am befuddled at how often I'll get a TPA to sort of hem hot. That doesn't really matter. And I'm like, oh, it does. Like it really matters greatly. And so the wrong people kind of steering this, that's when you get a real big miss on expected claims versus incurred claims, or even when we talked about the premium equivalent stuff, driving employees to one plan or another. You're not just driving them arbitrarily, that will drive utilizers to one plan or another as well.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And I think there's also a misconception around like what plan design means when we talk about plan design in the year 2025, because people, especially who've been in the benefit space a really long time, like me, 20, 25 years, when they think of plan design, they think of just changing copays and deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. And in 2010, nowadays, deductibles and co-insurances and copays are like the second conversation that's being had about plan design, where the first one is how can we, in a way that's, as least disruptive as possible, manipulate the plan design in such a way that we're going to, have a positive or a favorable cost impact to the plan, but also, ideally, even create a better experience for members. So, and there are tools out there.
Are you getting it like steerage?
Yeah, I'm talking about steerage. I'm talking about, network performance. Like people, I don't think a lot of people think of those as plan design features. I think they're 100% plan design, because they're just
Can
about.
I unpack that for a listener that might be like tracking with us, but maybe not 1,000% tracking? And even correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm catching what you're throwing, you can add a deductible to a plan. That's one thing. And again, I think you sort of talked about that as potentially secondary, because a greater impact to your plan spend might be introducing a deductible that's a disappearing deductible, or one that applies at provider A, but not at provider B. So we're utilizing the plan design features, in this case, deductibles. But what we're actually trying to do isn't just introduce a deductible to a plan. What we're trying to do is steer our employees to one provider over another. And the logic behind that is, as it turns out, when we look at this stuff from a data-driven standpoint, one of, if not the single greatest contributor to the cost and the impact we can make on plan spend is what provider we go to in the first place, what doctor, and not the cheap doctors, but the higher performing ones, or the ones that might be more likely to recommend PT first instead of straight to surgery. So now we don't have the reoccurring surgery and the infection from the surgery and all that stuff when all we needed was 3 months of squats and lunges, right? Am I repackaging that in a way that you're comfortable with and I'm tracking with you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't typically like to make analogies between or to highlight the differences between auto insurance and health insurance because they're different animals. But, when you think about auto insurance, you have a claim, you call the insurance company, and they tell you which provider to go to.
Right.
Here's who you can use to fix your car.
Right.
This isn't a whole lot different. I think people are, a little bit more sensitive to it because they don't want to be told which doctors to go to. They want to go to their preferred doctors.
Right.
And who doesn't? But at the same time, we have to recognize that there are, providers that cost sometimes multiples less than what other providers cost.
Oh yeah.
And so, these steerage techniques, can vacillate between improvements in cost and quality, ideally both, but
Even
they're
site of care.
there.
Maybe sometimes it's not even a different doctor.
Site of
Maybe it's the
care.
same doctor, a different site of care, a surgery center instead of the hospital setting.
Exactly. Yeah. So in other words, how are you going to, in other words, you're going to get the care that you need, but where's it going to be done or who's going to do it? So to me, those are all, things that are being done right now, very much plan design oriented, and they're good ideas in that realm.
Yeah.
So
I had the guys from Gartner on a while back, and that is first of all, you mentioned the term point solution earlier. I know it's thrown around a lot, but basically point solution meaning a vendor that we introduce to our ecosystem who is going to help us put downward pressure on claims, usually a hyper-specific type of claim. So maybe we hire Hinge, for example, to help us put downward pressure on the cost of our MSK, musculoskeletal claims, for example. Gartner being a point solution that helps drive employees to, again, typically higher performing doctors, but doctors that, overall the data shows will hit the plan spend for less for just as quality, if not higher quality care.
Yeah, their thing, and I love Gartner, their thing is that they are trying to minimize pain. And so they prioritize different providers, even sometimes different providers within the same hospital system.
Totally.
Whose outcomes have shown that they're going to minimize pain. So it's really cool they found it there. I mean, I know it's probably a separate discussion, but had back problems, and what he found was that your problem is not really going away until you stop feeling, like literally feeling that problem. Yeah. So that's an interesting model as well, and there's others out there, but I think that's just a really, really important aspect of how plans are.
And maybe circling it back to the actuary in the equation, maybe even to bring us home, to keep to our kind of commitment to keep these conversations bite-sized and digestible. Although this one maybe got a little bit muley for people, but only because I'm just so grateful to have a mind like yours in the room. And again, literally partner with you personally with the company because I believe in you guys so much. Is there anything from I'm talking to a plan sponsor as an actuary, spots that you might not consider or things that we haven't touched on or kind of a get out point that you want to make to that audience in the space of kind of what the actuary brings to the table?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to get out is that, there are lots of different people on your team, who are supporting the success of the benefits plan. And that's going to be, your advisor, your quarterback, right? And you're going to have a population health management person. You might have a compliance person helping you, an HR technology person, an actuary, or financial analyst. The actuary very much is the glue that brings all this different stuff together. Most of the time we know enough about the clinical analytics piece where we can be, helpful to a population health strategy. We know obviously our strength is on the financial side of things, so we can tell you what all that stuff is going to mean at renewal. So what I'd say for those people who are not working with an actuary today, and if you haven't had experience working with one in the past, they can be an invaluable resource to leveling up, your offering to your plan sponsor clients. So we're not just, like financial experts. We're people who really understand holistically how the plan works. And, we're super interested in, measuring what these different things that you can do and how it impacts the performance of the plan overall.
And then, with your tools, you're just talking about a basic Excel sheet with some basic formulas, right?
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. I joke because I know that you're sort of like, listen, for clarity, this is so much more involved, and these models we build are so much heavier than that you've really dumped your heart and soul into, which I think is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to make it easy for people to do actuarial things and feel like they've got an actuary in their pocket. So that's
Awesome.
what a lot of the hard work has gone into. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing all this stuff to light, Toby.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you being on. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. That's all of the time we have for you on this week's episode. This week's episode is brought to you by our sponsors, TrueHue, Excel Health, Rula, Montage Insurance Solutions. We're blessed to be here. We thank you guys so much for following. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.